teenagers of Reddit. What did you think was part of puberty, but really something else? Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Sheer exhaustion. Turns out anemia is common in teenage girls, especially when you have irregular heavy periods. I had this too. Looking at pictures from that time, I am shocked at how little color there was in my face. It's really scary. Yep, was the exact same. I remember being dragged to high school and feeling like I was dead and being laughed at for being pale. I was called a ghost almost every day. I'm a girl and grew a beard. Thought it was puberty, but turns out I'm just Portuguese. LMAO, I feel you. I'm from northern Morocco and those Mediterranean genes are kicking in. Hairy ASF to sad face. Growing up, I was really close with my cousin. We were the same age, lived in the same neighborhood, went to the same school, and had the same group of friends. I remember during junior high school he changed quite a bit, and at the time I didn't have the mental or emotional capacity to wonder why or figure out on a deep level what could have been happening. He used to be very fun, jovial, and enjoyed hanging out with me and my friends. Suddenly around the time we turned 11 or so, he became much quieter, preferred to keep to himself, and started becoming a lot more introverted. I figured that at that time we were all going through puberty, and as we learned in class, as our bodies change, so could other parts of our personalities. I figured, hey, I never liked girls before, but suddenly I want nothing more than to hang out with girls, and so he probably had a similar change. Only with regards to his social preferences, I only recently found out, 20 years later, that his father got heavy into alcohol right around that time, and he abused him. Definitely physically and verbally, possibly sexually. He didn't quite go there and I didn't push. His father ultimately left his family, and the story we were told at the time was that he was traveling for business, but that everything was fine. So we had no choice but to accept this. It breaks my heart that at that time I could have been there for him, but I had no idea something deep was happening that was causing a fundamental change to my cousin's personality. I just assumed he was going through some natural changes and that his natural personality was coming out. But it turns out the worst thing that could happen to a child, having your parent abuse you, was happening, and that was the reason for his sudden change. I hope I am not the first person to tell you, but an 11-year-old no responsibility for something like that. Of course your heart is broken, but you did nothing wrong. Internet hugs. This is how people should treat each other on the internet. When I was a teenager, I always thought that having resentment towards my mum, single parent, was normal for that phase in life. Everyone told me I was just an overreactive teenager, going through changes, hypersensitive, and it would pass and one day I'll realize how lucky I am to have her. While I agree, she was a good mum, I still harbor a lot of resentment toward her over a lot of things, and my family was extremely toxic and would consistently diminish my feelings to make themselves feel better. It wasn't just a teenage mess of emotions, these were real problems that my mum couldn't be bothered with. It was more important for her to be the victim, and that hasn't changed still 20 years later. Most people are on the outside looking in, and don't hear both sides of the story. Sometimes the smallest thing can lead to a life of depression, anxiety and self-deprecating. In other words, you're not just finding yourself as a teenager. Life comes with constant growth and realizations. Don't ignore your instinct, because everyone is telling you otherwise. Everyone told my mum my anger was because I was a teen. She has never and won't ever meet her grandchild. Mine was always PMS. Yes, I PMS 365 days and that's why I'm in the psych hospital. I'm suicidal, because hormones, not because I was raised to think I was the cause of everyone else's problems. I still visit and talk to my parents sometimes, and it's funny how interactions that used to feel so normal to me look so fricked up the longer I'm out of the house and have more context for healthy interactions. Anytime I was sick, had an injury, or especially when my mental health problems started up, my parents always told me that I was overreacting or making things up for attention because that's what girls do. My brothers were always taken in the doctor immediately, but I would often go prolonged periods without treatment for easily fixable things. Just to list a few, I broke my hip in high school. It took 3 years of constant begging and pleading to get to the doctor, and the pain was so bad and I was unable to sleep. The doctors said I would have made a complete recovery had I come in when it happened, but because we waited so long, it was unlikely even physical therapy would fix it. The doctors told me I should have told my parents sooner, or made it clear how bad it was. I will have to get a surgery when I get older to fix it. I used to get sick every month or so due to a weak immune system. Parents always told me I was faking, and sent me to school. I passed out once from a high fever at school. I was sent home countless times with fevers, a bad cough, or rashes so bad I couldn't walk. I had bad eczema as a kid that would cover my entire body, but if I woke up my parents to stay home, instead of taking the bus, they would get pissed. And I once passed out in front of my parents while trying to convince them one morning that something was wrong and I needed to go to the doctor. I had a really bad bladder infection and a high fever, and ended up going to the hospital and staying overnight. Parents were constantly talking to my friends' parents about how overdramatic I was, because I was constantly getting injured from having loose joints and making poor decisions while out exploring with my brothers. I once got a nail stuck in my foot while playing at a friend's house, and couldn't get it out, and was scared to tell my friend or her mum, because I thought they wouldn't believe me. I tried to walk on it, got it deeper in my foot, and started bawling. To my embarrassment, my friend got her mum, who pulled it out, and luckily it was a new nail, no rust, and was small enough that it hadn't hit any tendon or bone. I begged her not to tell my mum, and she gave me a big hug, promised me she'd never say anything, and always made a point to call my mum to invite me over to go swimming in the summer and spend any nights she could of me just to get me out of my crazy household. I respect my friend's parents deeply for doing what they could without intervening and causing me to lose one of my few safe havens. I almost got myself killed the other day, because I didn't call the police in an emergency, because I still largely believe I am overreacting and being dramatic about everything. I get extremely bad pains in my legs, which was suspected to be growth pains. Multiple doctor visits later, without my mother, as she never believed me, and I was told I have very weak tissues in my legs that often tear or get inflamed, and had to start physio to try build them up more. My mother still thinks I'm lying, even though I have been diagnosed by professionals. It hurts. Same here. It always hurts so bad to work out. My parents still made me jog with them as a teenager and just told me I was being a baby. Turns out I have a connective tissue disorder, Ehlers-Danlos, and my joints pop in and out of place all the time. It hurts to jog, because I'm using all my muscle strength to hold my damn bones together. Take care of yourself and treat your body kindly. I destroyed a lot of things through being stubborn and succumbing to pressure from others. I have a connective tissue disorder that makes my connective tissue just fall apart at an alarming rate, but luckily I was diagnosed young, as it was in the family. I love to run and it's sad knowing I can't keep doing it, but I can't imagine how bad it would be if my parents didn't know. Acknowledge it. Props to you. I can tell you how bad, as my parents ignored my connective tissue disorder. I've had symptoms since birth and didn't realize not everyone's body does this until my late 20s, then diagnosed around 30. Brutal. But since I've not known anything else, I manage. I'm 30 and I still get these pains in my legs. I also have two bad shoulders that have dislocated and I've had to have surgery on one and know I'll eventually need it on the other. I used to think they were separate things, but this makes me think there could be a connection. Insanely heavy, painful period, massive weight gain, being uncontrollably mean to my mum and then crying, because I didn't know why I was being mean to my mum. My puberty was so bad my mum took me to all kinds of doctors. She felt like I was possessed and also dying. I physically could not get out of bed on my period. Turns out I have PMDD, bipolar disorder and an underactive thyroid. I went on birth control at 11 to control the bleeding and mood swings. Mood stabilizers around 13 and then thyroid meds at 15 and life was much better. Glad you were able to get the help you needed at such a young age. I'm sure those times were really rough, but thank goodness things were looked after by medical professionals and your life improved. It took a while, because I was 9 when I got my first period. It was a nightmare at the time, because one minute you're a little girl just living your best life and then one day you wake up hateful in a pool of your own blood feeling like someone just stomped on your stomach. Then you start gaining weight. Your dad says it's because you're about to have a growth spurt, but it doesn't stop and you never get taller. Next thing you know you're screaming at your mum and it feels like it's not even your voice coming out, because you don't know where all of this rage came from. I even started hitting my older brother. I loved my big brother. I was always his little buddy and then suddenly I was just filled with so much hate. The first few doctors said it was just puberty, Finally I broke down crying on my mom's lap and told her if something didn't give I was going to kill myself. Because I couldn't live like that forever. I felt like I had no control over myself at all. The Gino is actually who was like, I'm sorry you go through how many paddies, you've gained how much weight, and also screamed for mental illness. At the end of the day, I'm thankful my parents and brother forgave me, because I was truly a monster. I've forgiven myself too though. I was only 9 when it all started and that's scary for a kid. Oh, wow. I was almost 12 when I got my first period, and that was bad enough. I can't imagine being 9 and also having all those issues. That's a lot for a little kid, or anyone. I'm glad you have good parents and a good brother, though, and I'm glad you found the right doctor. Oof. Sounds familiar. My thyroid went haywire after my second baby was born and I would itch to hit my kids. They wouldn't have even done anything but I would have to lock myself in the bathroom until the urge to hit them and scream would stop. It's like you're watching yourself in horror, but can't stop the incandescent rage. I would cry once it passed, because I never wanted to hurt anyone. I finally got treated for Hashimoto's and within a month I came out of it. I'm glad you had persistent parents who got you help. Can't imagine dealing with that at 9-13. I was feeling a very large disconnect from everyone around me, especially people my age. I constantly visualized being in a bubble separate from everyone else, and I had a hard time having conversations. But I just thought it was puberty, because I didn't want to self-diagnose, and I figured everyone else felt the same. Turns out it was Asperger's. Oh, the bubble analogy hits. I'm nearly 40 and I still feel like that. I'm happy though. Have you had any therapy or treatment? Losing the vividness and emotion of life. I thought society cherished and glorified childhood so much, because everything feels so much more real and vivid back then. Turns out I just have a condition called derealization. LOL. Wait, what the frick? I was just thinking about how my 5-year-old brother had such real and vivid emotions and how much I missed that feeling. How do you fight derealization? That's easy, bro. Just be true and real and never fake. Also follow back if they follow you. Later, bro. Thanks, bro. Bro. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more r/AskReddit content. Be sure to check out our playlist, link in the description below.